The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Cantor, for being here. I don't want to rain on everybody's parade here, but the first thing I wanted to do was ask unanimous consent to submit for the record a letter that was received by the full committee chairman, Chairman Jordan, as well as the ranking member, Mr. Nadler. And this letter opposes
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. This letter opposes the FTC and DOJ's proposed changes to Hart-Scott, the pre-merger notification form, and it's got about 30-some associations and trade groups that have signed off on it. So once again, Chairman, thank you for allowing me to enter that into the record. Mr. Cantor, in June of this year, you announced that your division is changing its review of bank mergers to look beyond the traditional metrics used in bank merger review. Certainly a lot has happened in that industry since 1995. However, it appears that bank concentration levels have remained really unchanged in local markets across the country for the last 25 plus years. As I'm sure you're aware, Congress has tasked the federal financial regulators, not really DOJ, with assessing matters on financial stability and systemic risk. Making, I think, matters worse, I think the administration has been inconsistent on this issue. I'm concerned that any change in kind of the current analysis that would depart from long existing and accepted standards may not reflect actual changes in the competitive environment. So let me ask you, have you been kind of in your assessment of this accounting for increased regulatory burdens that drive consolidation and result in strong banks acquiring struggling ones in your revised bank merger guidance?
Yeah. So the process for revising bank merger guidelines is still very much underway. And what the purposes of the remarks that you referred to was to say that if we're going to enforce the antitrust laws and provide assessment of competitive impact, it's important that we do so against the backdrop of today's market realities. And so in 1995, people would line up at their bank on Friday to take cash from their teller. They'd sign up for banks and get a free toaster. The role of local and community banks were different then than they are today, and that certainly fintech was not even a term that people used. And so what we're saying is that if we're going to go about conducting an analysis, it's really important that we conduct it against the backdrop of how the markets work today, and they've changed. And so I think it's an effort to bring it up to date first and foremost.
So the president's executive order on competition, it called on the AG in consultation with the Fed, FDIC, and the Comptroller Currency to kind of come up with a plan regarding bank mergers by January 5th of 2022. Can you describe that process, and was there a cohesive plan?
Yeah, so
how was that tackled, I guess, is what my question is.
That process is still underway, and we're doing so in coordination with the bank regulators. As you may be aware, we are working on, as some of the other members of this committee have asked about, our draft merger guidelines. We are in the process of ingesting a large number of public comments with respect to those merger guidelines, which will also have significant instructive value with respect to the bank merger guidelines. And so we look forward to taking all of that input and working closely with our colleagues across the government to come up with sensible bank merger guidelines that are reflective of today's market realities.
I happen to be in a unique position of being, I think I'm the only member of Congress right now that's on financial services as well as Judiciary. So there's a lot of discussion in both committees about this. If the agencies adopt the draft, they will reduce kind of the value of those guidelines to little more than just kind of a policy statement. Do you feel like we're in a position where you're going to be able to kind of be more public on these issues?
Yeah, certainly with respect to the, let me respond first with respect to the general merger guidelines, which are in draft form. We wrote them as a first and foremost for the rule of law. These are the first guidelines ever to cite Supreme Court cases, because ultimately we are a law enforcement agency, and if we are have to adhere to the rule of law and how we enforce enforce mergers, and so or merger law, and so we have written these to be durable and tractable. But I should note that we've also submitted them for public comment, and we've received tens of thousands of comments from individuals, from businesses, from farmers, and overwhelmingly supporting our draft merger guidelines. But we're in the process of reviewing every single one of those comments and then making updates to the draft. It's an important process that we can learn and before we finalize the existing merger guidelines.
Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.